Welcome again to New York by Night, the Mage venue. We currently set the scene within the back of the well-known noodle shop that the mages tend to frequent, being popularized by one John Smith, a Cult of Ecstasy member, and just generally through word of mouth has become rather a popular eating joint for the other mages. The two individuals that are currently in the back of this restaurant, um, one by the name of Jericho, the other one by the name of Nisi. Jericho having called over Nisi to discuss some things that he found out investigating the burning dumpster body that made its way on the news nearly a month ago before. And we begin the scene as such.
Sorry. Um, so you said you had something to tell me?
Yep. I went ahead and looked into one of the cases from Bark Media, the one that you were concerned with, the immolation.
Yeah?
It turns out it might not be a case of immolation, but rather a case of spontaneous combustion.
Spontaneous combustion that actually burns the body?
Apparently from the inside out. Cause of death was boiling organs, and the rest of the fire, people could not find the accelerant for it. People could not find any reason for it. It's as if all at once the body was just on fire.
Any sign that it's Alpha Omega related?
And Jericho goes ahead and shakes his head. It's weird, but it doesn't look like the Alpha Omega's MO. There weren't any obvious iconography on it. As far as I can tell, the police are upgrading this particular case into a murder investigation simply because they are just as baffled at what may have happened as any one of us.
Okay, one thing at a time. That's awful for several reasons. But, like I said, I'm not sure if it's related to the specific type of awful that we're looking into. But I think I might know somebody who's interested in that. By the way, how have things been going in Queens?
Things are, at the moment, besides this little disturbance,
Besides,
rather stable, at least for the moment.
I'm not sure if you'd know this, but like nothing particularly unusual, no other real incidents. Because you know a lot more about that area than I do.
Yep, myself and Sam scouted that area quite a number of months ago. She was actually on the reality creatures trail. From the way I remember it, it's basically a creature that lives out of space, time, and desperately wants to break into Queens. We found pretty much the origin point, filled it up with a little bit of the primal element, and it was quite content to go ahead and let us be for the rest of our natural existences. I, for myself, have taken precautions by setting up 2 chronometers there, just in case if the time fluctuations happen again, we'll have an early warning system. Besides that, there's my group. There are the survivalists. a weird thing. People walk like us, talk like us, but exhibit strange
What
potential.
does
How to
that
class
mean?
them?
Strange potential? What does
Like
that mean?
I don't know. I really don't.
Well,
The
like,
effects that they can do mimic some things I can do, but it doesn't come from the same source, like whatsoever.
hmm. Um, all things considered, I'd kind of like to avoid that. Like, is it just people in general scattered throughout Queens, or is there? Because I heard that place was kind of a magical hotspot. I mean, maybe I'm just getting things wrong, but
There's a lot of neighbors that I have to continue with. The survivalists, there is a technocratic presence there. Don't freak out. I've been able to have at least a cordial conversation with them once or twice. So if you need to talk to one of their people, I can arrange a meeting as well. And as far as any extra dimensional things are concerned, the Shadowlands are currently within the purview of one of the angels. There is an angel in the Shadowlands.
oh, all right. Um, um, oh, sorry, we're doing a Christmas Carol on the radio station. We're practicing for a live broadcast. Apparently, they do it every year. Um, had been working late on that. But what I've been moving back to what we were originally talking about, it's that I've been thinking for a while. Now, obviously, whoever's been doing this has been covering their tracks, or at least been putting up the appearance of covering their tracks. Like they had somebody serving a mind loop so that nobody knows anything's wrong with the chantry, unless you go repeatedly, or unless you look into somebody's mind. But here's another thing. They're leaving this symbol scattered around. And for a while, I think we've been assuming that the symbol is an effect of what they're doing. Like, it's just something that comes off. But a lot of... how to put this? I used to read murder mysteries when I was a kid. I got a lot of books confiscated that way. But what happened is that after you read a couple of crime novels, they always say that in the case of things like serial killers, the reason why they leave clues behind isn't because they're doing it accidentally, it's because they want to get caught.
Interesting.
And I think for a while we've been assuming that whoever it is that's doing this stuff does not want to get caught, does not want to get noticed. But they've actually, if we've been thinking about it, been doing some very visible, high-profile things. Like, all right, the homeless people, those people who die, that's not necessarily visible unless you go through and you connect all the people. That's a harder clue to find. And the connection is sort of tenuous, but they left, like, you got a hold of the gun that committed the murder, and there was the symbol on it, almost like a Mason's mark. If I were going to commit a crime, I would not leave my initials on something. So either this was a certain brand, which I don't think it was, just given how unique this was, or they put it on there. And then, how did you get it in the first place? You said you found it in a marketplace? I'm trying to remember this correctly.
That rifle with the AO symbol, we found it in an underworld marketplace, actually.
Yeah, so they committed the murder, and then instead of getting rid of the murder weapon, put it back into circulation. Put a very unique weapon back into circulation, where maybe not necessarily you would find it, but someone, because normal people don't go to those marketplaces. That was very clear the last time I went.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one option. And then the Field of Roses is perhaps the least subtle thing I have ever seen, looking back on it. I mean, certainly we couldn't see it for a while until we traversed through the node, but the Fallen seemed to know exactly what it was. They seemed to be very well aware of its presence. They weren't hiding that this was there, that they were taking up a chunk of this. So we're either dealing with someone who is intensely sloppy or is leaving these clues on purpose. But the one thing they didn't do that was very obvious is all of the homeless people who've been dying, the support group, everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the clues that we were meant to find, I think, to some degree or another, are the roses and the cross, the gun, the MacArthur murder, and the missing choristers. Those are the things that we are supposed to find. But it's these homeless people that really you have to like go through and make the connections, and you only see it in their mind, and you only see it in specific chants. I suppose you mentioned that one mass suicide was ritualistic. Were they chanting anything? Okay, like
Mm-hmm.
unless you had picked that rose, we would not know that. We would have had to have been there. So I'm wondering if we're looking at the really big things and going, oh, look at that. And we're being led in a certain direction, like a little trail of breadcrumbs, and we're missing that there's something else.
Could be very, very possible. It could be that the AO organization is not very concerned with all these blatant things because they're confident that we won't go ahead and mess up their plans. However, these small things, this little herd of dead coming in from the homeless population, that's something they need to cover up or do very, very piecemeal after the fact.
I'm wondering if maybe they need that because they're putting an extra level of protection on it. Because if the roses are their memories or their souls, they're not concerned about the rose field getting destroyed, at least not yet. Otherwise, they wouldn't have just left an open door to it. And let's face it, Oliver's not much of a guard.
Mm-hmm.
When this is all over, I'm going to bake that guy a cake. But they weren't concerned about people getting in there. If they were more concerned about people getting in there, then I feel like they would have done something to guard it more. Like, obviously, they put up the decoy once you got in there. But they put one thing in there. They didn't put any blocks on the door just after you got in there. They seemed reasonably confident that you wouldn't get in there. Or maybe they just didn't care. But if we're to believe that these roses were the souls or the memories or the essence of the people who were dying, then somehow they are feeding that.
It's very, very possible. What if I told you that the AO is actually a woman? And that she sent out a herald to one of my contacts.
One moment, sorry. Sorry, my roommate needed to be let in. Okay. Wait, what?
Jericho just looks at you from across the table. Yeah. And I'm a dead man.
What?
Okay. It may not be as all drastic or as devastating
Whoa,
as
whoa, whoa,
that.
whoa, 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 whoa. What?
I'm not literally a dead man. I'm still living
Well,
and
no, no,
breathing. Don't worry about that.
obviously I'm getting that. But you can't explain.
Okay, okay. Let me go ahead and dump this down on you. My contact in Queens is one of the ferrymen in the Shadowlands. He holds quite a bit of domain down in there. Quite powerful in that realm in his own right. And he was approached by the Herald, as he calls himself, of the Alpha Omega. Apparently, this Herald describes the Alpha Omega organization as a growing power in the underworld of wraiths, ghosts, spirits, specters, and the like. And apparently, this herald was offering an olive branch, a peace, a truce, some sort of agreement or alliance between itself, Alpha Omega, and the other powers in the underworld. However, they didn't reach that agreement because my contact in the underworld would not sell me out. He had already made a previous agreement with myself as regards to some of the local haunts in Queens, and because of that arrangement, he refused to sell me out. The Herald pretty much demanded that any collaboration with the will workers ourselves would just cease and end. And when my name came up, that was a deal breaker. My name specifically. So I might be a dead man.
How do they know your name? Because looking back on what we've done, every time we have dealt with the Alpha Omega, you've actually been very careful not to give your full name. You've referred yourself as Jack. I mean, I think there was one time you did use Jericho.
Perhaps it's not my name that came up. Perhaps something about my identity, whether it be my name, my house, my tradition, or some people that I work with, or even some of my chantry mates. Just something about me pretty much set them completely left center. Now, that might seem a little bit vain. It could be just that any will worker set them off. And it's something that I need to go ahead and look into a little bit more.
Yeah, but so you said the Alpha and Omega was a collection of... Okay, first, what we need to do is... If your name set them off, either because you have been investigating these things, or because you were originally tied up with the MacArthurs. I'm not sure how they would know that. But if they do, then it could be very well that they know all of our names.
I hate to think that.
And if that happens, we've had so many people involved. They haven't killed any mages yet. Not to our knowledge, anyway. But of course, that doesn't mean that they can't try, or that there's not going to be a first one. But
I do not know what to think about all of this. I mean, I've had time to think about it, but mostly to ignore it. It's one of the reasons I went after the burning dumpster case. I knew for it was in my gut that it was not related at all to the Alpha Omega. I just simply wanted to cross it off my list, and you seemed rather concerned with it.
Well, obviously it's not. It's something else. It's not. Anyway, this is something we need to be concerned about for a multitude of reasons. If they know your name, they may know your haunts, they may know where you're going, and again, I'm not scratching the idea off the list that they might not know all of our names, and I think you know what, I think we you know, and I'm not sure that the why that they're doing this matters so much as the fact that they have done it, and you know what, no. You know what would really screw with them?
What?
I want to see if it's possible to shut off a node.
You and Tom.
I know you're laughing, but I have heard theories that if you get the ley lines to run opposite, you can do it. They're using this as some sort of portal. They're using it as a power source of some sort because they've used this to create a tunnel, another alternate dimension. That is, of course, probably the number one way to piss them off.
Well,
but this has gone. We left. This has gone far enough, way back. Of course, you know, I am concerned. I mentioned the idea that if you shut the door to something, the room is still there. But obviously, to me, what it seems like is all of these wraiths and everything like that, at least with the Field of Roses, the Fallen can't get in, right? And the Fallen are, as far as I can understand, or at least in that area, the rulers of that area, right?
Yep.
It looks like they're trying to carve out their own little fiefdom there. They've created a place where the rulers and the authorities cannot get into. Obviously, they have left the back door open. But they seem to be more concerned about those people than they are concerned about us. And maybe that's the thing I was talking about. That's why they haven't put more security on that. They're not as concerned about that.
They think they have adequate security measures, but perhaps we're the only ones that can walk through the cracks?
Again, because if they created a place that the Fallen couldn't go. They didn't create a place that we couldn't go. They seem to be more concerned about keeping the Fallen out than they are about keeping us out. And this might be that when they found this node, they took out the mages, the Celestial Chorus mages, and then they went in there. Or, if we want to go with the theory that the Celestial Choir summoned up more than they could handle. But it looks to be that, for whatever reason, that place, I'm wondering if that place is the end game. And it's just not done yet.
Could very, very well be the end game. This little small fiefdom that they're carving out of the underworld, where they pretty much have pushed out the local rulers and the local inhabitants.
And I'm not...
So much power is there. Just so much energy, so much emotion, so many auras, so many just plain souls are all concentrated in this one small little area, and it all has that one focal point, that hanging man.
And there's nothing else. Just the hanging man and the roses. I mean, I don't know too much about the underworld. I don't know too much about how this works, but if this is, the Alpha and Omega is a conglomerate of wraiths and spirits, And I already have a vague sense of the answer to this question, but what would they want with roses with that much emotion and that much soul in there? Do they keep them around as snacks? Do they keep them around as just scenery? Or do they keep them up as like a jump start to the car in terms of their energy?
Well, if we're being rather cynical, we would go ahead and jump to the third option right away. However, have you ever considered that they just want to make their own little place and separate themselves, distance themselves far, far away from all this nonsense, to make their own little realm, their own little world, disconnected from everything, where they just have beautiful roses for their entire eternity?
That's really lovely. Until you remember what the roses are. And then it
I've
becomes the
heard.
worst thing you've ever heard.
I know. I know. I'm not usually the one to be so damn poetic. You're not usually the one to remind me of the awful world that we live in.
I'm just. When we.
Perhaps this is just me hearing some rumors from the local haunts. They talk about sometimes a faraway place that's still within the dark umbra, but so far away from all of the unnecessary sorrow and bullshit that's essentially its own little realm in and of itself, where they can go ahead and just escape to, and there's a whole environment there that's completely and utterly different from the hell in the Shadowlands.
You know, I wondered for a long time about the crucifixion thing, about whether it was meant as, like we've assumed, a decoy, or a mockery, or just a slap in the face to any chorister who came in there. But actually, when. Okay, we've got a whole bunch of wraiths and spirits, and from what you've told me about wraiths, and from the stories my aunt used to tell me when I wasn't good and I didn't want to go to bed on time, wraiths are messed up beyond comprehension. They have something to do with something keeps them tethered. They want to, I'm assuming they want to move on. I'm guessing the same idea goes for spirits. They want to, they don't see, I can't imagine they see themselves as evil necessarily. Just looking for the next step. So you've got a whole bunch of things that were once people who quite possibly once had a certain set of religious beliefs, who have now created a place with beautiful roses in the only way they know how, with all the power they need to sustain their version of heaven. They take up a name which can mean either pain and suffering in the end times for those who are judged wicked, or hope and joy for what happens next. Because I'm wondering, we're not, like I said, there's two parts to that verse. There's the part that's about judgment, and there's the part about I am the first and the last. And so, in the end, you will be with God. And they have created a perpetual savior to die for them.
It's very, very interesting from what I could tell, or for what my contact was able to divulge to me. The Alpha Omega, she she took that name for one reason or another.
Well, if she specifically took that name, that is one of the names for God. Alpha and Omega, the Great I Am, Yahweh. They're all classically grouped together as the names that we call an unnamed God.
Okay.
Names that God either gave himself through commandments or to help the Israelites in times of their unfaith or with faltering hearts. So she has actually taken for her name the name of the all-powerful God. And she is these people's leader. And if my idea about why they have created this little world and what you said is correct, then God is leading their chosen to paradise. Now, the idea
So,
that there
sort of like Moa leading the Hebrews out of Egypt and wandering for about 40 years in the desert before finding the Promised Land, for which
well,
they
the
had to
wandering,
fight many, many bloody wars for.
well, the 40 years was a punishment. But, sorry, but, well, the fact that she took the name Alpha and Omega makes me believe this is more of a biblical times. God will separate his chosen and there will be a great war on earth. Where ultimately the chosen, i.e., this person's followers, will win, and then everybody will go to the city of New Jerusalem, where life is perfect and the city is made of gold. Now, which actually brings me to the next point. This rose field may not be complete yet.
Is it missing some vital components, or is it just not big enough?
Well, I don't know how many wraiths and spirits she has. Might be a perfect room, but let me put it this way. If you were to create a paradise, are roses really the only thing you would put there?
No, I guess not. I've never really thought about what I would fill my own personal paradise with. I mean, if I did
I'm
think about it
just,
for a few different seconds, I would certainly involve a lot more trees. In fact, there's a
I'm,
countryside somewhere that I would just go ahead and copy paste into my personal paradise. Just simply find myself a little hill, copy paste, have the rest of my eternity all stretched out before me.
this may seem like a weird question, but obviously spirits and these types of things have marketplaces. Do they have houses?
Um, I assume they have housings, yeah?
Yeah, if they were going to live there, I think they're about to start construction. Because think about it, you've got a beautiful rose field.
Hmm?
Now you've got your foundation. You've got the things you want. You've got the power, and obviously people's memories and things are important to them to have there, to either go over or to consume, or whatever it is rates do with these things. Now,
Yeah. And
yeah, now you'd want to start building places to live before you move in. So here's the thing, if all of these deaths we've been seeing are for the roses, what type of death scale do you think we're going to be seeing for the buildings?
I really don't know. Suicides are rather, well, they're devastating, I know, and they've got a lot of depressive emotions attached to it, but it's more self-inflicted.
But here's the kicker,
Kind of death that would.
Miss MacArthur
Hmm?
wasn't a suicide. somebody shot her.
This is
Now,
true, but
I know you.
wait, no. You got that confused. Miss MacArthur, she didn't turn into a rose. She actually went into the slave markets.
Do you think that was the test run?
I
I mean, as unpleasant as that sounds, if her spirit went into the slave market, then all of the other spirits that we're aware of that this happened to went into the rose field. Do you think they realized at a certain point it had to be suicide?
Very, very possibly. I don't know the motive for at least I don't know their motive for Miss MacArthur's death. But all I can say about that particular subject is she did die. She went to the slave market. She was bought off by Dimmy. Uh, Apparently, Dimmy and Miss MacArthur and the apprentice that Dimmy brought along had an altercation. She was let go and pretty much running free for all I know.
So she's still out there, technically?
She very much could still be out there in the underworld, free, enslaved, coin, spoon.
Well, you might need to. You know, again, you know more about spirits than I do, but would they use a gun to kill somebody if they wanted to kill somebody?
A gun is not beyond them. They would
Yeah,
use either a gun from the physical world to murder somebody, or a gun that they made within their own craftsman. It's very, very easy for a particularly powerful specter to take possession of a very, very weak-willed person and have them commit a murder. It doesn't. It happens.
because we still have those names we got from that guy in the market. I mean, why go through the trouble of possessing someone when you can pay someone who can go between worlds to do your dirty work for you? Or, you know, we may even be looking at this wrong. They may not even see it as doing dirty work. To them, in fact, the suicides are doing something quite noble, sacrificing themselves for their paradise.
Let me go ahead and give you some information about what the some of the other. So let me go ahead and give you some information about what some of us have been doing, especially Tom Dooley. Tom Dooley went ahead and forwarded me an article about one of the names, Crow, actually. Apparently, Crow was a bandit from the last century, actually. I can go ahead and forward you the same article. And
Yes, please.
Tom Dooley is also the person that came to us suggesting that we either one, take down the portal, or two, start messing with the node.
So, this guy. Sorry, who's Tom again? I'm not sure. Have I met Tom? I'm sorry, my memory's usually so good at this.
If you have met Tom Dooley, he hasn't made his presence that well known. You talked to some of the Verbena. Actually, Tom Dooley is the apprentice to Alex Winterborn. So if you get into touch with Alex, you can get in touch with Tom that way.
Okay. And he suggested we start messing with the node.
His first suggestion was to simply turn off the portal completely and utterly. I think he was thinking along the same lines as you. The idea that if the portal was shut down, it would force the Alpha Omega to react to it. He talks about the ley lines quite a lot. I don't really understand it all. I wasn't really tutored in the primal element or the prime sphere whatsoever. So it all goes over my head. He'd probably be able to explain a lot better than me.
Is it possible to tamper with it but not shut it down? Not shut down the portal to this world? Because what I'm thinking is, if the node is in fact powering this world, then what's happening if we start messing with that power? Somebody is going to notice.
There are certainly ways to make it weaker, to make it smaller. In fact, I've banished spirit material away from places before. I've only done it recently. I know the theory, at least.
Because I'm thinking we'd have to be very prepared, but if we can draw this thing out into a confrontation, because any way you look at it, I don't think the idea for this portal I just get the feeling it's going to get bigger. You know, I think maybe even if we went back there now, we'd find more than mist and roses and rocks. I think we'd find more. Or at least we'd find the beginning of more.
It would certainly be interesting to see what has developed while our attention was divided elsewhere. In any case,
and we need to find a safe way of dealing with Oliver.
Sure.
That doesn't involve him. You know, next time we go in, maybe it's time to tell the guy the truth.
Yeah, the complete and total utter truth. Again, Tom Gooley already messed with Oliver's head a little bit to try and open it up to release him from the mental loop. He said he was somewhat successful, but that the effect was very, very temporary. I believe the way he described it was extending his own mental protection to Oliver in order to, I don't know.
Yeah, because if we look, this is actually, I've told other people this, but it's an image that's been getting into my mind for a long time, because I've actually, like special occasions for churches, I have actually seen the Alpha Omega symbol in those, and I've never noticed it before because it's on candles. More specifically, the design for the candle is that the A is at the top and the O is at the bottom, and there's usually a cross or something in between, and the candle burns down until you get to the end. And very nice religious symmetry here, but I am, usually these candles get taken away before they reach the designs. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe this is, like I said, construction. You don't want to build up brick by brick. You want to get a lot of bricks. You want to have all of your materials ready. And then you want to start building.
Have we ever thought about the idea that the roses are the raw materials? That they're in a very, very convenient container, that being roses? And when the time comes, they'll go ahead and make the transformation from rose to brick or mortar or iron or whatever have you.
That could work too. It's not because nothing in there is alive. Nothing in there has a soul. I mean, even the things in the roses, they're not souls. They're essences. They're not living and thriving. They're not what you think of when you think of a soul.
Their
Static.
essence. It's essence. Um, corpse. How was it explained to me? God damn it. Wraith spirits, specters, different things. They're all made of smaller things. You have the consciousness there, but like us, they're made of their own version of flesh, blood, and organs and the like. It's just if you take off a pinky finger from myself, the pinky finger doesn't have a soul, but it is a part of me. Separated from me, it still has my essence.
So here's actually the creepier question. What happened to that rose you plucked after you plucked it?
After that rose, I traded it for safe passage
No,
to that.
I remember that. I'm
Mhm.
saying, inside that theory, what happens if you pluck a rose? Obviously, you saw its memory.
Mhm.
Did that mean that the memory, in essence, got released by
That's
plucking
very
it?
that's very, very possible. I mean, I still remember it. It's still here. I don't like it, but it's there.
Do you think there's any way to exercise these things without actually plucking the roses?
Well, let's think about like this. If these are essences, if these are just memories, not true souls, not true spirits, I believe a lot of aura manipulation would have an effect. Maybe, I don't know.
Because we might not even need to tweak the note at all. If we help these people pass on, or whatever these things are, pass on in general, we'd be saving this part of them, but also we'd be taking away. This would get attention, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, and it would, of course, require us going into their realm.
Mhm.
We've left our house and are going into theirs. But that's why we need a lot of people with us to retreat, which is if anything is following us. Is there like a trap that can be set up ahead of time in that room?
Within the inner chamber where the portal is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Something can be set up. There can be a ward set up that would uh, trap things. We'd have to know exactly what we were dealing with.
So there's no
We
traps that would work for a wraith and a spirit.
exactly a wraith, spirit, something in between. Hell, even we would have to even protect against were creatures just to be safe, or hell, even I don't know. I really don't. I've always been terrible at wards. This is why I've been extra careful for things not to follow me or actually know what I am.
So we need to know what this thing is before we can.
We have another thing that we can do. We have the idea for weakening the portal, which can be done with plenty of knowledge of the primal element, as well as some dimensional uh, dimensional know-how between the different realms of the tapestry, weakening it or shutting it off completely. We can go ahead and start to divert power from the node to make it weaker. Again, more knowledge of the primal element. And we can start to see if we can't exercise the roses, which is an interesting concept. These are memories, these are essences. They hold a certain amount of spiritual weight to them simply because of the memory that they hold. If
The
there
thing
is
on
a
the cross
way,
could be exercised.
maybe we can get back to that point. If we can go ahead and end the story for each and every one of those roses to be a happier ending, to be a good death rather than a bad death, then the spiritual weight of the rose would drop off. It would change. Probably, or maybe, hopefully, something that the Alpha Omega can't really use.
Because they need the suicides, they need a bad. So if we can manipulate these things' auras, then we shut them off their materials. This does, of course, draw the idea and the worry that they'll just go out and get new ones. Or they'll be so angry that all of their hard work has been being whittled away, they'll come find us.
Yep, that would definitely draw them out. Seems like a lot of people are thinking about drawing out the Alpha Omega.
We're going to need to sooner or later.
Yes, it's true. There's no other way to say it. I've been in the city way too long. I've let things go ahead and develop when they ought not to.
Let's cut this one off at the source then.
Alright. Don't worry about the check. I can pick it up for you.
Oh, come on. At least let me pay for dinner, okay?
Yeah, sure. Leave,
Alright.
Okay, fine. If you got this. Go ahead and make sure to, tip the waiter. And actually, I'll go ahead and handle the tip.
I'm a
Slaps down,
special force. I'm a good tipper.
Okay, fine. Jeez. Jericho's gonna go ahead and walk away from the conversation, walk away from the table.
Lisa's gonna shake her head, put down the money on the table, tip 20%, and she's also going to leave.
And we end our scene there. Hope you all had fun.